So I think the next piece of this, before we start talking about the actual route options, is to give you a piece of what the East Coast Greenway looks like and how your little piece in Tariffiville fits into it, and also what's happening in Connecticut. And Molly Henry is the New England coordinator for the East Coast Greenway, and she's going to walk you through what's been happening.
Hello, all. So who here is familiar with the East Coast Greenway? Everybody. I don't want to bore you too much, but we have this whole idea that we're going to connect Maine to Florida, so from the Canadian border down to Key West, Florida, and it's 2,900 miles long. And Connecticut makes up 200 miles of the East Coast Greenway, and about 34% of that is complete, as in off-road, separated from motor vehicles, and that is our whole vision, so that anybody at any age, any ability can get out and enjoy the trail. And so, you know, the Farmington Canal Heritage Trail is a huge spine for the network, and for those living east of the trail, they can't really get to it unless they drive to it. And that's not really what we're trying to promote. We're trying to promote connectivity. So this Tariffiville connector is essential to making that east-west connection so that people can access the north-south spine, which is 70% complete, right, Bruce? And a lot of great stuff happening there, and he'll talk more about it. But this is all about connectivity. So while we're talking about a very, very small segment, it's really I guess important to understand in the bigger picture what this segment means to the larger picture. And this is a priority for the East Coast Greenway in Connecticut. In each state, we cite what our priority is. And for 2015, the Tariffiville connector is our priority for the very reasons that Patty mentioned, for the things that I mentioned, and the things that Bruce mentioned. And if anybody wants to talk to me afterwards, I'm happy to tell you more. I just wasn't given too much time to talk about this massive project, so feel free to pull me aside afterwards. So thank you.
Okay. Well, I'm Bruce Donald. I'm the president of the Farmington Valley Trails Council for the last 9 years. I'm also the chairman of the Governor's Connecticut Greenways Council as well. And I'm very impressed with this crowd. This is a fantastic turnout, and I appreciate it very much. I recall town meetings 15 years ago in various towns where there'd be 12 people, and I think this is just fantastic. You all know about the Farmington Canal Heritage Trail. What you might not know is maybe the broader perspective, which is that it was always designed to echo the Farmington Canal, which went from New Haven to Northampton, Massachusetts, and along with a few twists and turns. In this particular case, the rail bed is in fact the railway that was put on top of the tow rope way of the canal. Now, there's some spots where it no longer exists, so we've got to build it elsewhere, but in general, that's what the concept was. And that's what early on made it a National Millennium Heritage Trail, which it is. So 80.3 miles in its totality, 70% done. As Molly mentioned, it is indeed a spine connector. It is the major one in Connecticut right now. In fact, everyone wants to connect to it. So if you hear things about the Merritt Parkway project, for instance, connects to us. The Eastern Trails. In fact, I was just at Pratt & Whitney, and they talk about the Airline Trail and the Charter Oak Trail, and there's a bunch of trails out there going toward Providence, which is the other side of this equation. All this connectivity is what we're talking about tonight. There are two gaps, 4.7 miles in Cheshire, scheduled to be completed this year, the center portion, the northern portion in 2016, and a small portion around Dalton Industries, which is actually going to be built elevated through a swamp to get around Dalton Industries around 2017. 9.1 miles, which encompasses all of Plainville, southern Farmington, and a bit of northern Southington. Southern Farmington in its totality is going to start to break ground this year. There will be a 135-foot bridge over Route 6 going into Plainville. It's a very aggressive, interesting project, and the one thing we're waiting to see is the design for that that bridge, which I'm fascinated to see. I'm very curious to see how that turns out. 43.5 miles of this trail is designated as East Coast Greenway. So from New Haven to essentially Route 315 is designated East Coast Greenway of this trail. And so, and again, I mentioned the connectivity. The little placket there internally is what the mileages are for each of the towns. So going essentially south to north. So it gives you an idea of who's got the mileage. And as I said, 9.1 miles and 4.7 miles are the only pieces that are not finished right now in that trail system. Down below you see fvgreenway.org. There's a ton of information on the trail system on our website. So, and obviously I will stick around as well for questions, and I hope you have some. So thank you.